So thanks for being here. We're with Laura Hartnell. She is honestly like the best resume writer ever. So she's been with us for quite some time. She dedicates her time to doing these things for you guys to, get pointers and things like that. But she also has her own business that does resume writing and career transition, right, Laura? She's a career transition specialist. She's an award-winning certified resume writer. She works with motivated professionals to create high-impact personal marketing materials and job search strategies. I said in my opening remarks to get more creative with your brand and making these marketing materials and have a strategy for yourself as because you're going out there and you're marketing yourself to the world. So I said how important this was in my opening remarks, and I'm glad that you're here to back it up. So
thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here. We'll put your information. I'll come back on at towards the end, and we can kind of talk a little bit more about your business, and if we have any questions, we can field those questions. So I'll leave you to it, 'cause I know we're a little over time, and then I'll be back towards the end. So thanks so much for being here again.
Thank you for having me. All right, so hello everyone. I'm Laura Hartnell. I am a certified resume writer, and today I will be diving into resume fundamentals. I could talk about resumes all day long, so I'm going to try to jam as much information as I can into 20 minutes. Okay, so one thing I want to say before I do dive into the actual nitty-gritty of resume writing is that your resume, yes, it is absolutely a very important tool in your job search, but it is not a magic bullet. You need to make sure that you are using your resume in conjunction with a really well thought out, well strategized job search. And that includes other things like networking, building relationships with people in the right industries and companies, conducting informational interviews, getting on LinkedIn, getting visible on there, showcasing what you know within your industry, within your space, as well as, the more traditional method of applying online through job portals and things like that. So lots of tactics that you need to be incorporating into your job search, but absolutely having a resume is very important. It's going to be kind of your foundation that allows you to do everything else. So I'm going to share my screen. So just give me 1 second here to set myself up. Okay. And can you see, there we go, see my screen, pull up my presentation here. Okay, alrighty there. And can everyone see my presentation? And can everyone hear me okay? Just pop a yes in the chat box and I'll make sure everyone's on board. Perfect. Okay, cool. Let's dive into it. So today I'm going to be covering what I call the 3 fundamentals of your resume writing strategy, which is strategy, content, and format. So before you even dive into the writing process, before you even put one word on paper, I think it's really important that you map out a really comprehensive strategy. And this is going to involve some self-discovery, getting to know yourself, understanding what you're all about, where your skill set lies, where your value lies. And if you watched Rachel's session beforehand, she really did a lot of great, she gave a lot of great tips on how to make sure you're aligning yourself with your career. So that kind of self-discovery can be really helpful in getting you focused on the right kind of jobs that will be a good fit for you. Research, and then of course finding alignment. So once you've figured out what you're all about, how do you align that with the right kind of jobs in order to appeal to your target audience? So let's start with that self-discovery, deep dive. So when I work with my clients, I ask them a ton of questions. I can take a 2-page resume and spread it out into 15 to 20 pages, especially if it's a more senior level person. So taking that deep dive is really necessary in order to flesh out what your ideal job is, understand your professional mission in life, and try to position yourself in the future while still learning from the past. So Here's an example that I just cut out of one of my client intakes. And as you can see, lots of information there in order to help you to flesh out those really good details that are going to allow you to create a really great story about yourself. Your resume really is your story. You want to make sure that you're putting your personality into it as much as you're putting your accomplishments into it. So speaking of accomplishments, you want to try to create a resume that is accomplishment rich. So before you try to create any bullet points or anything like that for your resume, a great thing you can do is try to map out what are often referred to as SAR stories. So this is essentially situation. So ask yourself, what was the challenge you were tasked with? Were you given a project? Were you given something that was broken and you had to fix it? Did someone say, oh, we need to significantly reduce cost? What was the big problem, the big challenge that you were tasked with fixing? And then action is all about what you did to tackle that challenge. So really asking yourself, how did you think through that problem? Who did you pull on board in order to help you solve that? How did you leverage your specific expertise in order to tackle that problem? And then R, result, what was the impact of that effort? And if possible, try your very, very best to quantify. And I know this can be really challenging for a lot of people, especially if you're in a workplace that doesn't necessarily use a lot of metrics. But dig in the best that you can to try to find that information, because it's really going to make your resume a whole lot stronger when they can see the proof. So if you need to reach out to other departments, so say you're maybe in a tech company, you're a software developer, you work in like UX or UI. How did the way that you modify the applications impact sales? Reach out to the sales team and ask them, like, are you getting good feedback from the customers? Are you seeing an increase of sales since we launched this new application? So don't be afraid to go outside of your own departmental bubble in order to get that information. So what I mean by quantify, dollar value, percent increase or decrease, a number if possible, like did you onboard 20 new people 1 month or something like that. And I put a little heart there because sometimes you just can't find those numbers, unfortunately, and that's okay. You still can create accomplishments even without having that quantified result. But what you want to do instead is really think about, well, how did you change the feeling? Maybe what you did really improved the workplace atmosphere. Maybe you had some colleagues or some customers tell you what you did in order to make them feel like so special or good about themselves. Okay, so the next thing is research. So the other part of composing your strategy is looking at job ads, looking at company websites. I always say, you can use job ads, absolutely, but another good thing to do is look at the companies that are in your search radius. So maybe that's a geographical search radius, or a lot of companies now offer a lot of remote work. So maybe that's really expanding. But map out your ideal companies that you would like to be a part of that culture, part of the problems that they're trying to solve, and look at their mission, vision, and values. And this way you can try to align your own values with what they're trying to achieve and what principles they hold. And then, of course, informational interviews. And I know Thomas will be doing a session specifically on this next, so check that out to learn more about informational interviewing. But through this research, you can get a lot of good information in order to try to compose your resume in a way that's going to be loaded up with the right buzzwords and provide lots of supporting detail that's tailored towards that particular position you're applying for. So here's an example of how you can incorporate different keywords from a job posting. So a lot of people will apply through job portals. So when you're doing that, you're usually going to have your resume get scanned by what's called an applicant tracking software system. And this is going to be picking up keywords and creating like a percentage match between your resume and the job ad. So as you can see, I've just taken a position summary, and then all the words in yellow are words that I've pulled from this particular position summary in order to put it into the candidate's professional summary. So there's an idea there. Okay, content. So as I mentioned already, you want to make sure it's accomplishment rich. Evidence-based. What do I mean by that? So evidence-based, yes, of course, you can grab those quantified results, but if you are going to be including a lot of soft skills in your resume, I think soft skills are so important no matter what role you're in. You want to be able to demonstrate how you've leveraged those soft skills rather than simply say, great communicator. Because anybody can say that, but how do I know you're actually a great communicator? Well, tell me how you've leveraged those communication skills in order to make a really good impression on a customer, turn around a bad situation, etc. And of course, you want to make sure your resume is unique to you. Have some fun with it. If you're a bit quirky, make it a bit quirky. Get creative. You can make it as traditional or as, kind of out of the box as you want to. But ultimately, you want to be able to have your personality and your voice coming through in those documents. So let's talk about some specific elements in your resume that you want to include. So headline, this is really important because it's going to signal to that reader exactly the job that you are applying to and where you belong within that organization. So in this example, we're looking at a senior executive, financial services expert, and an operations manager. So use a headline that kind of sums up the different titles that you would be applying for or that you've held in the past. And another thing you can do in this case is if you're applying in direct response to a job ad, put candidate : and then whatever the particular position title is so that it's mirroring the application. And then, of course, sometimes you want to apply for something that you don't necessarily have as much experience in. So a way you can kind of manipulate that a little bit is putting that you're poised for success as whatever that position title is. So that might be great for new grads who are looking at entering a field, or maybe you're making a career transition. Okay, summary section. So this is where you want to really demonstrate your unique value proposition. So highlighting those skills, those qualifications that are most pertinent to the role you're applying to, but then also kind of keeping in the back of your mind, well, how do you get things done? How do you drive impact in the organizations you work in? And how will you do that for this particular organization that you're applying to? Think about how you're going to make your future boss's life easier. And that's what they should be getting from reading this summary section. In this example, I've got a paragraph overview, but then I've also broken up some bigger achievements into those little call-out boxes so it stands out more. So it's kind of demonstrating the value with the how, but then you can see those immediate results right at the top of the first page of that resume. What you want to avoid is that all about me objective. You know, the one that starts out seeking a job in XYZ? No, employers, I'm sorry to say it, they don't really care what you want. They want to know what you can do for them. Keywords. Okay, so I already mentioned the importance of keywords due to the applicant tracking software system. So here's a way you can just load up your resume with a bunch of hard skills. Hard skills different than soft skills. So these are the skills that you have learned to do, not the more personal touch, but the expertise you bring to the table. So this is really great for overcoming the computer scan, but also if you're sending your resume to an HR associate or a recruiter, they're often working off of a job requisite where they're just matching up, okay, yep, got the skill, got the skill, got the skill. So this is a great way to overcome both the computers and the humans. Experience section. Okay, so ultimately you want to do this in reverse chronological order. What I like to do when I write resumes is create a very high-level overview of your position. So, you know, how did you get that job? Were you recruited, hand-selected, promoted? Give a little bit of a background as to how you got the role and then why you were chosen for that role. Were you chosen to like do some kind of big organizational turnaround, to fix something? Give a brief overview as to your high-level kind of duties and responsibilities. And then the bullets I like to reserve for accomplishment statements because we'll talk a bit more about this when we get to formatting, but you want to create a visual format so that the eye goes to the most impressive things first. So in this case, I've what I call top loaded the accomplishment. So I've put the result first, and then I've dived in kind of a case study format to add a little bit more detail as to how that accomplishment or how that result was achieved. So create some bulleted achievement statements. These ones are, I will admit, a little lengthy, a little bit dense. I try to keep my bullet points to about 2 lines, but in some cases you can go a little bit lengthier. Include numbers wherever possible. Try your best to minimize jargon, especially when you are going to be sending your resume to a recruiter or an HR associate. They might not have a really good familiarity with what you do in your job and the types of acronyms and jargon that's used. So make sure you're making it accessible for those audience members as well. And if you are switching into a new field, once again, minimizing jargon will be really important, as well as highlighting any of those transferable skills, because you ultimately want to have that reader envisioning you in this new industry, in this new position. Okay, education and training. So a lot of times in education, I will see it at the top, even if the person has like 20 plus years of experience. Education, unless you're a brand new grad, will go after your experience section. And I don't include dates. Like I said, unless you're a brand new graduate, like you graduated this year. And the reason being, you don't want to date yourself. Your experience section usually will only go back 10 years. You can put older experience on there, of course, if you're in a more senior position, but employers are really most interested in the recent 5 to 10 years. And so education, put it in the order of significance. So for instance, if you have a PhD or a master's degree, that would go first, followed by your bachelor's, followed by any diplomas, followed by any specialized training. So make sure it's put in the order of significance. And okay, let's talk a bit about formatting. I know I went through everything super, super quickly, and I'll try to answer some questions after we've wrapped up here. So format, you want to make sure it's visually appealing, and you want to make sure it's easy for the person to read. So incorporate lots of white space. And then of course, you want to have results that pop, or key skills, keywords that pop. So you can use some strategic bolding, strategic italics, and different methods in order to make certain information stand out more than others. So what I'll do is I'll just show you a few examples. So I just want to check, can you see the PDFs here? Okay. Perfect. Okay. So here's just a quick example. This is what I would consider a more junior level resume, but it's nice and kind of traditional looking as far as the formatting goes. So here's where we've talked about the headline, and Jasmine here is applying for customer success representative. She has created her own little tagline, delivering friendly, informative, and resourceful service that uniquely fits each client's needs. So feel free to create a little tagline for yourself that really sums up what you're all about in that role. Here we have an overview of her career summary, her value statement, followed by an areas of expertise. So here's where we're going to load up on those hard skills, like I mentioned before, in order to make sure that this is a keyword optimized resume. And going into work experience. So I think what I like to do is bold the position, because I think your title in most cases is going to be more important than the company you worked for. So bold your title, make sure you include your company, the location. If it was in a country outside of Canada, then just put the country. And then I think what's really important is to include a little, very brief overview as to what it was the company did, right? Because especially if you're new to Canada and you've worked in companies in outside of Canada that Canadian employers might not be familiar with, give them a little overview as to what that company does. That can be very helpful. So once again, creating a little overview of what you typically did in the role, bulleted achievement statements. Once again, I've front-loaded the result here to make sure that the impact really stands out, and followed with the education section. So I'll just show you a couple other formats to just show you the variety that you can have. So you can have a little more fun, you can make it a little bit more colorful and flashy. With this particular resume, I think it was really important that we highlighted the 15 plus years of experience within end-to-end technology strategies. And then what we did was we broke down her value proposition into subcategories. And I think this is a really great way to, especially when you're aligning your skill set and your achievements with the values of the company, this is a really great way to demonstrate that. So it breaks the content up a little bit better with those subcategories. So once again, following the format that I mentioned earlier with those different sections, a leadership snapshot. If you're in a position where you're going to be managing people, then this can be a really great thing to include. Is think about your leadership style. Who's inspired you over the past your past career? How do you motivate and shape teams and things like that? So think about your leadership style. And I'm going to show you one more example. Here's another way you can have a lot of fun. And this was with this particular client, we had created a bit of a visual element to her brand that she used throughout her personal marketing documents, her LinkedIn profile. And it was a lot of fun. And it was because when we were talking, she'd mentioned that, with her business development strategy, she was always trying to think like 3 steps ahead. And she even mentioned like in chess. So here we go. We went with the chess theme, and it was a lot of fun to use some of the chess terms, include a graph. If you have something that warrants using a graph, don't just throw one in for the sake of it. Like, it has to make sense in the context of your resume and your skills and your achievements. But anyways, I'm going to end it there because I've just talked really, really fast. Stop sharing, and I look now and see if anyone has any questions. I don't see any.
Oh. Hey, Laura. That was a lot of info fast. That was really good.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Question. So how long should a resume be generally?
Okay, perfect. This is a great question. 2 pages is what I always recommend for most people. There will be instances where 1 page is more appropriate, like if you're a brand new grad and you don't have a ton of experience to really dive deeply into. And then on the flip side of that, I do work with some senior level executives where they just have such a lengthy career history where there's lots of really relevant, good, meaty details we need to include. And so 3 pages would be the absolute max I would ever recommend.
Okay, awesome. And we do have another question. So they asked how many pages, text only or smart with links? So they're asking, they have links in their resume?
I do include links sometimes when it's for, so your email should be linked. Your LinkedIn profile should be linked. If you've got a GitHub account, if you do something on Twitter or Instagram or another social media channel or platform that is relevant to the job you're applying to, then include your handles or link your handles to those. And another area where you could include links would be in your career experience. If you're putting the company and maybe a bit of a company description, you could also include a hyperlink that goes to that company website, so that if a recruiter is like, oh, I've never heard of this before, they can easily just go access that link and see what the company is all about.
Perfect. And I think we have time for a couple more questions because our next sessions are starting at 3:05. So someone's asking, are references important on the resume?
No, don't put the references on the resume. references will be requested usually once you get into the interview stage. So you can have your references nicely formatted on a separate document that you will submit once you get to that stage and they're requesting that. That way it's nicely cohesive with your brand. But no, don't put them on your resume directly. What you can do instead is, I like to pull like short little quotes, snippets of things that people have said about you, like from maybe LinkedIn recommendations, or maybe in a formal reference letter. Put that in your resume in a little like text box or something, and use it as social proof. People love social proof, so that can be a lot of fun.
Perfect. We have a few other questions, but I just don't, our next sessions are starting at 3:05. Can they reach out to you? Maybe if you put your contact information, maybe they can reach out to you. We have someone asking about how for a mom, asking on behalf of his wifey, which is, I find that very adorable. If references are asked, should you provide email, phone number? What if experience is abroad with a different language? So we've got a number of questions here. I just don't want the next session started. So can they reach out to you? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put my, I know I put my LinkedIn contact information in the chat box. I can't put it here. I'll put it in the chat box again so you can grab it.
Answering the career gap question, it's totally okay to have gaps on your resume. I mean, as long as you're showing you're doing some sort of volunteer. I mean, people understand life happens, right? You become a mom, you need to stay at home, take care of your family. You've got parents that are ill. You've got the pandemic, which no one planned for. I mean, recruiters totally are, everyone's human. So it's as long as you portray it properly, which I'm sure Laura can give more advice on that. So we're going to head over. Our next sessions have already started. So we've got using informational meetings to tap into the hidden job market, and we've got how to recover from burnout during COVID-19 pandemic. So thank you for being here, Laura. We really appreciate your time. You got a lot of questions here. So reach out to Laura on LinkedIn, and thank you again so much. And your business has been kind of flourishing. It's amazing to see, and you're such a leader in your industry. So if anyone has a resume written, or just need help or guidance, Laura's your girl. So thanks for being here, Laura. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks.